Hello and welcome to your English class. This is a video explanation of today's reading assignment. We have just begun reading I'll Give You the Sun, so I want to remind you that it is last call for Zoot Suit. So if you haven't turned in Zoot Suit assignments, you have through tomorrow night to turn them in. So please get those assignments in, but we are moving forward with this new novel. In class last time, I introduced the novel and I read the first section. Today I'm going to do a very brief review of what I introduced, and then I'm going to read one of those sections. The sub is right now sharing this video with you. As soon as the video is done, the sub will dismiss you and you'll be asked to please go and check in with attendance at that time. So if you have gone to your agenda, it looks just like this. It's going to ask you to do a brief review writing to kind of a pre-read, and then it's going to assign just 16 pages of reading, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4. So it's very little reading, and I am going to read 1.2 in class right now. So when you are done, you should be able to write a response in here answering these prompts, and you should be able to do this section, the first section of the reading. So I'm going to begin with a quick review of the novel and give you a little heads up about, what's going on here. So first of all, I'll Give You the Sun, a young adult novel focusing on two teenagers who are twins, Noah and Jude. We get alternating chapters. We get Noah telling us the story when they are 13, and then later we're going to get Jude telling us the story from when they were 16. It opens with Noah being bullied by two surfers by the name of Zephyr and Fry, and Noah is the artist, and he's always got his sketchbook, and so Zephyr and Fry grab his sketchbook, start going through the sketchbook, threaten to throw him over the cliff. They end up stopping for a reason, and Noah runs off with his sketchbook intact. So in that first section, in the first 7 pages, which I read last time, we got an example of Noah's mind paintings. You might remember them. They're in parentheses and they have a title. And he does these paintings in his mind. So Noah's chapters are called the Hidden or the Secret Museum because they're in his mind. What is in his sketchbook? Well, what Zephyr and Fry find are him doing sketches, drawings of the famous Michelangelo David, doing details of his body. What is he afraid of? Well, Noah's afraid that if they flip past those, they're going to find the drawings he did of Zephyr and Fry naked and holding hands. Okay. Why do you think they bully Noah? They call him Bubble, and they also use these homophobic slurs, homo and pussy. And but these seem to be terms they use for everyone. So why do you think they would bully a guy like Noah, right? But then they stop. And I want you to remember what happens when they stop. They're both holding on to him, trying to grab him to throw him over. And Noah gets sexually excited by this. And when Zephyr realizes, he jumps off. Why do they not continue to bully him? Why do they not throw him off the cliff? And Noah is surprised by this too. He is almost certain they're going to kill him now. But there's this implication that Zephyr likes Noah's sister Jude. And he tells us that everybody is falling in love with Jude because she's seriously like a badass, can outsurf any of them, jumps off of cliffs, and she's got this crazy beautiful hair, and they all want to be with her. So why do they stop? Well, they stop because he gets sexually excited, but there's also this implied that Zephyr and everybody else is attracted. So Noah gets bullied, but they're willing to stop because of Jude. So he says that he was saved by Jude. And he also says that Jude is always saving him. So I want you to think of these gender reversals. That Noah, the boy, the twin, is protected by his sister. And his sister, although she has long blonde hair and she's beautiful, is still a badass, jumps off cliffs, surfs out with the guys. And I want you to see those ideas right there. Okay? So I am now going to read 1.2. Remember 1.1, he says there should be a horn or a gong or something to wake up God. And he says, I want to have a word with him, actually 3 words. So remembering Noah is 13 when he tells his chapters, and we can assume that Jude is 13. Think of the present right now. They're 16, and so this is 3 years ago. Okay, so this is 1.2 of I'll Give You the Sun, chapter 1, part 2. So he has just escaped from the bullies, and now we cut to Noah and Jude at home. The next night at dinner, Mom announces that Grandma Sweetwine joined her for a ride in the car that afternoon with a message for Jude and me. Only Grandma's dead. Finally, Jude exclaims, falling back in her chair. She promised me. What Grandma promised Jude, right before she died in her sleep 3 months ago, is that if Jude ever really needed her, she'd be there in a flash. Jude was her favorite. Mom smiles at Jude and puts her hands on the table. I put mine on the table too, then realize I'm being a mom mirror and hide my hands in my lap. Mom's contagious. And a blow-in. Some people just aren't from here, and she's one of them. I've been accumulating evidence for years. More on this later. But now, her face is all lit up and flickery as she sets the stage, telling us how first the car filled with Grandma's perfume. You know how the scent used to walk into the room before she did? Mom breathes in dramatically as if the kitchen's filling with Grandma's thick, flowery smell. I breathe in dramatically. Jude breathes in dramatically. Everyone in California, the United States, on Earth, breathes in dramatically. Except Dad. He clears his throat. He's not buying it because he's an artichoke. This, according to his own mother, Grandma Sweetwine, who never understood how she birthed and raised such a thistlehead. Me neither. A thistlehead who studies parasites. No comment. I glance at him with his lifeguard-like tan and muscles, with his glow-in-the-dark teeth, with all his glow-in-the-dark normal, and feel the curdling, because what would happen if he knew? So far, Zephyr hasn't blabbed a word. You probably don't know this because I'm like the only one in the world who does, but dork is the official name for a whale dick. And a blue whale's dork? 8 feet long. I repeat, 8 feet long. This is how I've felt ever since it happened yesterday. Self-portrait. The concrete dork. Yeah. But sometimes I think Dad suspects. Sometimes I think the toaster suspects. Jude jostles my leg under the table with her foot to get my attention back from the salt shaker. I realize I've been staring down. She nods toward Mom, whose eyes are now closed and whose hands are crossed over her heart. Then toward Dad, who is looking at Mom like her eyebrows have crawled down to her chin. We bulge our eyes at each other. I bite my cheek not to laugh. Jude does too. She and me, we share a laugh switch. Our feet pressed together under the table. Family portrait. Mom communes with the dead at dinner. Well, Jude prods, the message? Mom opens her eyes, winks at us, then closes them and continues in a seance-y woo voice. So, I breathed in the flowery air, and there was a kind of shimmering. She swirls her arms like scarves, milking the moment. This is why she gets the Professor of the Year award so much. Everyone always wants to be in her movie with her. We lean in for her next words, for the message from upstairs. But then Dad interrupts, throwing a whole load of boring on the moment. He's never gotten the Professor of the Year award. Not once. No comment. It's important to let the kids know you mean all this metaphorically, honey, he says, sitting straight up so that his head busts through the ceiling. In most of my drawings, he's so big I can't fit all of him on the page, so I leave off the head. Mom lifts her eyes, the amusement wiped off her face. Except, I don't mean it metaphorically, Benjamin. Dad used to make Mom's eyes shine. Now he makes her grind her teeth. I don't know why. What I meant quite literally, she says, grinds, is that the inimitable Grandma Sweetwine, dead and gone, was in the car, sitting next to me, plain as day. She smiles at Jude. In fact, she was all dressed up in one of her floating dresses, looking spectacular. The floating dress was Grandma's dress line. Oh, which one? The blue? The way Jude asks this makes my chest pang for her. No, the one with the little orange flowers. Oh, of course, Jude replies. Perfect ghost wear. We discussed what her afterlife attire would be. It occurs to me that Mom's making all this up because Jude can't stop missing Grandma. She hardly left her bedside at the end. When Mom found them that final morning, one asleep, one dead, they were holding hands. I thought this was supremely creepy, but kept it to myself. So? Jude raises an eyebrow. The message? You know what I'd love? Dad says, huffing and puffing himself back into the conversation so that we're never going to find out what the freaking message is. What I'd love is if we could finally declare the reign of ridiculous over. This again. The reign he's referring to began when Grandma moved in. Dad, a man of science, told us to take every bit of superstitious hogwash that came out of his mother's mouth with a grain of salt. Grandma told us not to listen to her artichoke of a son and to take those grains of salt and throw them right over our left shoulder to blind the devil. Then she took out her Bible, an enormous leather-bound book stuffed with batshit ideas, aka hogwash, and started to preach the gospel, mostly to Jude. Dad lifts a slice of pizza off his plate. Cheese dives over the edges. He looks at me. How about this, huh, Noah? Who's a little relieved we're not having one of Grandma's luck-infused stews? I remain mum. Sorry, Charlie. I love pizza, meaning even when I'm in the middle of eating pizza, I wish I were eating pizza. But I wouldn't jump on Dad's train even if Michelangelo were on it. He and I don't get on, though he tends to forget. I never forget. When I hear his big banging voice coming after me to watch the 49ers or some movie where everything gets blown up or to listen to jazz that makes me feel like my body's on backward, I open my bedroom window, jump out, and head for the trees. Occasionally, when no one's home, I go into his office and break his pencils. Once, after a particularly toilet-licking Noah the Broken Umbrella talk, when he laughed and said if Jude weren't my twin, he'd be sure I'd come about from parthenogenesis. Looked it up. Conception without a father. I snuck into the garage while everyone was sleeping and keyed his car. Because I can see people's souls sometimes when I draw them. I know the following. Mom has a massive sunflower for a soul, so big there's hardly any room for her organs. Jude and me have one soul between us that we have to share, a tree with its leaves on fire. And Dad has a plate of maggots for his. Jude says to him, "Do you think Grandma didn't just hear you insult her cooking?" "Ha! That would be a resounding no," Dad replies, then hoovers into the slice. The grease makes his whole mouth gleam. Jude stands. Her hair hangs all around her head like light sickles. She looks up at the ceiling and declares, "I always loved your cooking, Grandma." Mom reaches over and squeezes her hand, then says to the ceiling, "Me too, Cassandra." Jude smiles from the inside out. Dad finger shoots himself in the head. Mom frowns. It makes her look 100 years old. "Embrace the mystery, Professor," she says. She's always telling Dad this. but she used to say it different. She used to say it like she was opening a door for him to walk through, not closing one in his face. I married the mystery professor, he answers like always, but it used to sound like a compliment. We all eat pizza. It's not fun. Mom's and Dad's thoughts are turning the air black. I'm listening to myself chew. When Jude's foot finds mine under the table again, I press back. The message from Grandma? She interjects into the tension, smiling hopefully. Dad looks at her and his eyes go soft. She's his favorite too. Mom doesn't have a favorite though, which means the spot is up for grabs. So that is our section for today. 1.2 of the Invisible Museum. A little summary if you don't follow what has just happened. Noah is home for dinner. You know, he's escaped from the bullies. Now he's home from dinner. And his mom says that the dead grandma's ghost showed up in the car to deliver a message. But we find out that Dad, and by the way, Grandma is Dad's mother. He thinks that his mother was crazy. He thinks that they're crazy to be talking about ghosts and stuff. Well, it turns out that Grandma made dresses, and she had this thing called the Bible, which is really all of her superstitious sayings and folklore, which Jude loves. So Mom says she came to me in the car to deliver a message, although we still haven't gotten the message, right? So what is the reign of ridiculous? The reign, so like a king reigns, it's a time in which a particular person exerts influence over everyone. So the reign was Grandma. When Grandma was in the house, she exerted this influence over the house, and her reign was the reign of ridiculous because she's this superstitious, magic, ghost believing person. And so when she was in the house, excuse me, there was always this talk of things that scientific dad thinks is ridiculous. So when he says it's important to let the kids know that you mean all this metaphorically, he's referring to the ghost. The ghost is only a metaphor for her memory. But the mom says, no, it's not metaphoric. It's literal. The ghost was really there. And so we have introduced at this point this what we call magical realism. Is there a ghost? Is Mom just making this up? And what is the message? And what is the deal with this husband who doesn't approve of his own mom going on? We also find out that Noah and Jude have a connection, but that Jude is the favorite for Dad and that Jude is really popular. And Noah is trying to win his mother's favorite place. Okay? So please complete those. You could have completed them right now during class. The sub will be turning this video off in just a minute and ending the share. Make sure that at the end of class you go and check out with my attendance. If you have questions about any of these assignments, send me an email. I will be back in touch tomorrow. Have a great weekend, and I will see everybody on Tuesday.